With all the storms we've had lately, it reminds me of another storm back in 1983. 41 years ago, Hurricane Alicia devastated the Houston area, packing a punch with winds up to 115 miles per hour. Thousands of homes in Galveston and Houston were destroyed. You may remember in downtown Houston, nearly all skyscrapers saw the loss of about half of their lower level windows, littering downtown streets with debris. And power outages continued for up to 3 weeks after the storm had hit. I remember a wedding that was held at a church in Houston not long after the storm. The bride and the groom were determined that the wedding not be postponed. Unfortunately, the wedding chapel at the church didn't have any windows to allow light in and no way to get a breeze into the chapel, so battery-operated lights were set up and the ceremony began. The minister came out with the groom, followed by 6 groomsmen, and then the bridesmaids began to go down the aisle. It seemed like it was all coming together, but it was hot. Low to mid-90s in the room with no breeze. Picture men sweating in tuxes. Picture women in dresses feverishly fanning themselves. I forget which of the wedding party was the first to faint. A groomsman, I believe. They brought out a chair and sat him down in it, still in line with the rest of the men, but it delayed the proceedings. Next was the bride herself. Her groom caught her on the way down to ease her fall, but she remained on the stage for a minute. The minister and the parents of the bride ran to her while her groom spoke tenderly to her. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he helped her into a chair that was brought out for her. Now, at this point, you might feel that it would have been better to call the whole thing off. But no, it was decided that the entire wedding party would be given chairs to sit in. A sit-down wedding. And once the ceremony was over and the wedding party moved outside, the bride was able to stand again and was restored to join the groom and the rest of the wedding party for the outdoor reception where there was dancing and feasting and where she sang a song to her new husband. And it strikes me that God's response to our sin is not unlike that of a groom to his fallen bride. Not only is it within God's ability to awaken us from our spiritual stupor and restore us to an honored place, and not only is it within his ability to put a new song in our mouth, it's his nature to do so. It's what he does best. With resolve, God comes down off his throne and tends to us here on the earth where we have fallen. He breathes life into us as he tends to us in our weakest, most humiliating, and most vulnerable places. He lifts us up off the ground and invites us to sing of his love, step out onto the dance floor, and to take an honored seat at the marriage feast of the Lamb. The psalmist put it this way in Psalm 40. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. He drew me up from the pit of destruction, out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. Blessed is the man who makes the Lord his trust. As for you, O Lord, you will not restrain your mercy from me. Your steadfast love and your faithfulness will ever preserve me. Think about it. As we lie on the ground in our self-inflicted wounds, we might be all dressed up on the outside for people to admire, but inwardly we feel dizzy and dazed by the effects of our sin. So our bridegroom, Jesus, intentionally moves toward us. He gets on the ground with us and breathes new life and hope into us. And this is who he is, and this is what he does. His answer to our sin is not condemnation, but grace. His answer to our embarrassment is not rejection, but tenderness. His answer to our repeated failures is not cancellation of our relationship, but it's an eternal embrace. His answer to the grossest things about us is not to shout us down and shut us out, but to quiet us with his love. Through the years, God sent many prophets to his people to declare his love for them. It was through Hosea, the husband who had been jilted by his wife Gomer, that God said, Behold, I will allure her and speak tenderly to her, telling her, I will make you to lie down in safety, and I will betroth you to me forever. The message from the Lord to his unfaithful, adulterous, prodigal people is clear. Even after the storms of life cause us to fall down and put our weakness on display for everyone to see, He will never leave or forsake us. Even when we are repeatedly unfaithful to Him, He will never be unfaithful to us. Even when we cheat on Him with faulty and insufficient levers such as sex, power, money, politics, and outrage, He will remain with us and true to us for better or for worse, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, as long as we live and into eternity. And this might be my favorite thing about the Bible. All the failures that are in it. It gives me hope. Because if there's saving grace for people like them, then there must also be saving grace for people like me. Maybe it's worth asking, why does God choose to do some of His best work through such unsavory characters? Why wouldn't God choose to work through good people instead? The simple answer is that there are no good people. As the Scripture boldly states, there is no one who's righteous, not even one. Even the best people were conceived with a sin nature. I've often heard people say they don't want to become Christians because Christians are hypocrites. Well, they're right about that, and I'm a big one. It's impossible to be a Christian and not be a hypocrite. If by hypocrite we mean someone who lives inconsistently with who they claim to be and what they claim to believe. But our hypocrisy, beloved, does not negate our Christian faith. Instead, our hypocrisy establishes our Christian faith. Think of it. Jesus came not for the righteous, but for the unrighteous. Not for the sinless, but for the sinful. There is no way to be a Christian without owning these realities about ourselves. I invited a friend to come visit our church on a Sunday. My friend, mulling over their sinfulness, said, if I came, I would set the pew on fire when I sat down on it. I explained, it's impossible to be too much of a sinner in our church because the church is for sinners and sinners only. The only people who should feel out of place at our church are those who aren't sinful enough. Church has nothing to offer those who don't believe themselves to be sinners. The same is true of your bridegroom, Jesus. So let the wedding proceed, because sooner than you know, you will be seated at the wedding feast of the Lamb, and there you will enjoy your bridegroom forever.